I love fly fishing. I've been doing this since my dad taught me at the age of 5. There's an excitement of tying a fly yourself and taking it to a river or stream, hunting out where you think fish will hide and making that perfect cast to see them rise and take your fly. I've been very successful over the years using dry and wet flies, streamers and bugs, but the fact is that in most of my trips I miss out on many opportunities to catch fish because my fly is drifting over their head. It's so exciting to watch a fish rise and jump in front of you while they are on what is called a rise, where they're actually feeding on top of the water. This rise starts quickly, then all of a sudden it is finished, and so is the feeding frenzy. To be a better fly fisher, you need to be informed of the feeding habits of fish. I realized I was only successful 5% of my time fishing because I was waiting on the rise. So what happens for the other 95% of the time? While the fish feed from the surface 5% of the time, the other 95% is spent rooting around the rocks in the bottoms of rivers, in calmer waters that you would find in pools at the end of fast water. The fish can stay calm away from the rapids. They don't exert any energy feeding, and they simply feed on larvae from the rocks in the bottom. This is where the nymph fishing comes in. A small nymph fly represents a larva that hatch on the rocks at the bottom of the riverbeds. Sounds easy enough to figure out, right? Well, not exactly. The current on top of the river runs faster than the current at the bottom. You need to figure out how to get your nymph down to the bottom quickly before the drift is complete. Even with a weighted fly, the current may be too strong and not allow the nymph to drop to the bottom. You actually want your nymph to bounce off the rocks in the bottom of the riverbed. From the screenshot of this fast-flowing area, I've highlighted the seams and where fish would normally sit waiting for food. Fishing currents close to you is the easiest. You take out only enough line to drop the nymph into the seam in front of you. Keeping your rod tip high, this is a short drift but can produce a lot of fish for you. Then take a little more line out and go to the next current. With a 12-foot leader, you're still able to drop the nymph into that seam without your fly line changing the drift. Further out you go, the harder it will be to get your nymph down to the bottom. You can add split shot to your line to help weight it down, or you can purchase a poly leader that is a weighted line 7 feet long for trout, 10 feet long for salmon. This poly leader has looped ends. One end connects to your fly line and the other end connects to your leader. This weighted line will help sink your leader and nymph quickly into calmer waters to give your nymph a chance to sink to the bottom. Another approach, if possible, is to cast upstream where your fly line is not sideways to the current and therefore does not get caught in the rapids. Looking at this part of the video, you can see I'm casting across river and the rapid is catching my floating line, dragging my fly unnaturally downstream. With a simple mend upstream, it allows the fly to stay in place much longer. At the far end of this stretch, there's what is called a back eddy. This is where the water swirls, and when it catches your fly, it can move it back upstream slightly. This can also allow your fly to sink to the bottom. With a mend of the loose line upstream, you can then strip your line quickly through each of the rapids and seams. My preferred method, if I need to cast for distance, is to cast upstream and retrieve quickly. This will increase your chances of getting the nymph down to where the fish are feeding most of the time. However, it does not guarantee success. There are some days, no matter what you throw at the fish, they just won't bite. I have stood in this exact pool knowing the fish were all around me. A few days earlier, fly fishers were hooking them one after another. A slight change in the water temperature, strength of the sun, and depth of the water can stop fish from feeding even in a honey hole like this. So when you're out in the river and have run out of dry fly options, start looking at weighted nymphs that can get you down to where the fish are feeding. In the meantime, please stay safe, be kind, have fun, and tight lines.